Okay, welcome. It's Fusion Fantasy Football, and this is the FusionFlex League evaluation. Just for you guys. No one else is going to care. But people who join this league, if they find this, and all of you who have been in the league before, if you do it again, I think this might give you an edge. And if we make any changes, keep that in mind. I may take some of these results into account when deciding if I make any changes. But as you can see, I have spreadsheets. Yes. All right. We're just going to dive right into it, guys, because I'm not going to waste your time more than I have to. Uh, Point is, I made a completely arbitrary random draft score, which just takes the points that the player got and the pick that was used on them and then gives you a score based on how much were they worth it, basically. And I like this score. It's a kind of I just make this stuff up. I know it's weird because the number, like, what does it mean? It doesn't actually have to mean anything. It just has to relate to the other numbers in a way that you expect it to. And in this way, it just means, look, Justin Herbert, 13th round, pick 4, and he's given you top 16 points. Huge value. So he gets 68. So you're like, well, why would Justin Herbert give you a better draft score than the overall points leader, Aaron Rodgers? Well, because you had to pay fourth rounder for Aaron Rodgers. That's why. Why would Patrick Mahomes be even less than Aaron Rodgers by a lot? Because you had to take him in the first round. Kelsey too. So that's why, look, this isn't to evaluate, and we'll get to it later. This isn't to evaluate how many points they got you. It's to evaluate their value at the pick. Okay. And it actually points out some pretty good ones. You can see Justin Jefferson, the one I did the little, formatting, conditional formatting, so it'll pop out at you so you can see the green ones. Logan Thomas, good pick. Robbie Anderson worked out well. Chase Claypool, oh my goodness, right? Not so great pick. Mark Andrews, that's an interesting one because he actually had some really good starts, but you took him second round, first pick in the second round. That's why. It's for what you paid. He didn't give you a lot. That's the point here. So anyway, that's the score that I'm talking about when I say draft score. So let's skip over all of that. Here's our league. You've seen it. This is just what's on the website, right? This is all that is. Except I brought in a couple things here. We got draft score, as you can see, and let's sort it out. Big Sneak technically has that best draft score, which means he overall got the best bang for his buck kind of thing. And then right there you see Stone Jesus, right? Byron, all the guys who were near the top. I mean, Lauren barely missed the playoffs, barely, right? And the other 4 players are the 4 players who got into the semis, right? So I think draft score seems to look good. Let's look at overall roster points. Now this is the drafted roster. If you made trades, cuts, and so on, this isn't picking that up. There's a lot of players down there on the list that weren't even drafted, right? That would have made your team look better than what you're seeing here. That's not the point. I can't account for that. I could if I really tried. I didn't try that hard. So Stone Jesus roster points, lots of points, right? Okay, it's the same 4 guys, right? Seeing a pattern here. It makes sense. Omega, he had a pretty good team here. Lauren again. All right, we're seeing a pattern. Let's actually look by the actual finish rank. Byron 1. Good job, man. You got to get me photos when your trophy arrives, like any day now. Okay, you've got to share some photos with the group. Stone Jesus, right? Me. This is how we finished. And Omega came through in the constellations and so on, all the way down. Jake didn't do so great. I'm giving Jake a hard time because he's gonna give me a hard time about something else later. So I gotta get mine in when I can. So that's it. We've seen all of this. Points for it pretty much lines up perfectly with draft score. It's interesting. I may have stumbled on something interesting here to evaluate drafts. Um, so this is the sheet that I actually broke it down by position. And again, draft score and roster points, and actually showing the number of players at that position you drafted. Okay, so right away we're going to notice something here. Uh, the four guys I was talking about earlier, we all drafted quarterbacks and did pretty well with them, especially the three of us. And he did okay. Actually, Jake did pretty well for the few that he got. He only got three. Same with thing for Brian. So interesting results here. You can look around. That's it for quarterbacks. We look at running backs. That's where Dark Helmet went with a lot, and he got a lot of points and a lot of even the most and best total value. And that's not an average value, though. Keep in mind that is cumulative. So you will get a high score just by getting lots of them, even if you didn't have a bunch of really good values. But you got to have, some good values to be better. I mean, you can see variation of players that had 5 running backs that they drafted were all the way from 200 down to 176. So there's still some variation there. It's not just how many you drafted. It also, the efficiency, how well you did matters. Let's look at wide receivers. You can see Lauren, ton of wide receiver and lots. Her draft score, look at that. There's 3 teams that drafted 7, and 2 of them were at 300, 290, and then all the way down here, yeah, he didn't do so well with his wide receivers. And that could be just took a lot of shots late and he had a lot of quantity, but they didn't really do much for draft score. Could be easily be that kind of thing. And then for tight ends, this was an interesting one, seeing as how tight ends were very highly valued here. Kelsey was one of the highest, point scorers in the league, let alone just tight ends, obviously. Dark Helmet went, so he went running backs, tight ends. Pretty good results there. So I'm looking at trying to keep an eye on where the winners finished on each of these. So I want to see, let's see what Byron. Let's focus in on the champ. What was the winning formula? So he went after, you can see, he went after quarterbacks and apparently high valued ones. I should have done that in the valuation here. Was also something to actually, instead of my draft score, actually just look at the picks that were invested, and that would be an interesting analysis. And if I ever do that, I can share it. But you can kind of get the point here from the draft score as well on the roster points. He did not go in. So what do we got here? We got a Superflex 0 running back team. You telling me my league was won by a 0 running back team? Yeah, he had some of the fewest points, running back points in the league. But you know what? That kind of makes sense. You only had to start 2, right? Everything else was flex. Most of those flexes, he's putting 3 to 4 quarterbacks in there. And probably he's got 6 wide receivers. So we'll look at that next. He's going wide receivers. If he has to flex, he's going for the upside of the wide receiver. It makes sense in this format. And I've done that in leagues too, where you only had to start like 1 running back, 1 or 2 or something. I took early big good running backs and then ignored them until I was taking, just shots later. But I didn't waste a lot of quantity of picks in running backs in those situations where it was a start 1 league. This is a start 2 with so it's pretty equivalent. That's really interesting. So there you go. Byron did pretty well. He doesn't have the most tight ends, but he's right in the middle. And it looks like, let's see where he is. He got pretty good value for just the 3 he got. Wow. Okay. Who are the 3 that he got? I'm gonna have to switch over to the actual team here and look at Byron's team real quick. What do we got? So he had Aaron Jones, and then Jeffrey Wilson helped him out, and Miles Sanders. Okay. And then for wide receivers, T. Higgins, Antonio Brown. Of course, that doesn't include guys on the bench, Mike Williams, Henry Ruggs. Okay, not some of those guys on the bench were not doing great, obviously, but he hit with enough of those guys. Of course, he's got Josh Allen. I mean, you get Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Aaron Jones, DK Metcalf. I mean, that's basically why he won. I mean, come on. That's all it takes. All right, so anyway, let's see who else did well. Who else did well with a different approach. Stone Toes. The thing that was common, remember, among the guys who finished in the semis, the top 4 teams, were, except for one, Big Sneak, but for 3 of the 4, it was quarterbacks. They did go after quarterbacks, and I remember noting that you guys weren't going after quarterbacks, and I was going to try and build like this giant tight end monster or something like that, and you guys passed on quarterbacks, and I had to go that way, and it ended up working out. I went more of a volume approach, so I had kind of the budget guys, Kirk Cousins, Stafford's, that kind of thing, if I recall. I didn't have the Aaron Jones, Josh Allen. My goodness. Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen. What else did we do? These guys. Me and Stone Jesus had a decent number of running backs. Okay, so I was a little bit more balanced, but I didn't go hard in for running backs either. Still had a pretty decent number of wide receivers, not the 7 of no, 6. Okay, same as Byron. So we were pretty balanced across the board after that. We just made sure we got our quarterbacks too. Except the Big Sneak, who drafted 7, he faded the tight ends a little bit more and a little bit less quarterback, one less quarterback. All right. So that's where he was getting his points. And then if we jump back over here and actually look at the draft score, which would be the total of what we were just looking at across all 4 positions, you can see they're all up at the top. They added up. So it got it done for the Big Sneak. He just got it done in a different way. He got it done at wide receiver and running back, and he really did actually get good scores in those positions. He wasn't just shooting blanks at the quantity. He was actually hitting on wide receivers and running backs. Yeah, 3rd and 2nd in wide receiver and running back respectively. So that made up for his lacking in the other areas. Meanwhile, those other areas are where the other 3 teams were winning. My team, as you all know, I noted it in the midseason. I felt like I could come back because I had a rough beginning with some of my quarterbacks and so on. But a lot of my quarterbacks kind of came through for me. Kirk Cousins, among others, and so that's how I ended up coming at. And of course, Kelsey is just a beast, and really that's how I managed to just put together a decent lineup that drug me into the semis, where I couldn't compete against those other 2 guys. I just couldn't. So congratulations again to Byron. I think while we'll look at the scoring a little bit, or even just the format, the starting lineup, some of you gave some comments on the league and on your thoughts, and so I can look at those real quick. I thought that you had some good observations. I don't know if we will change the actual lineup. I suppose we could go one less super flex and go with one more regular flex to allow running back and wide receiver, particularly in this case, I would say running backs, to have a decent amount of value still, quantity, not just the two big ones or so on, or one big one and then hope you land on someone else you can throw in there. So I wanted to highlight some of these. All right, so great, great job, Josh. Really prepared. Um, there it is. Okay, so all right, we got fantasy champion here. He said, great group of guys. So he's talking to all of you, great people out there. Having the SFP scoring was frustrating. There was so many quarterback injuries. Okay, so you could have gone in on quarterbacks. He didn't really. He only got two, and that's why, because he got two and sounds like they got injured. But the good news on that is there's not a required quarterback position. So you're not putting up a zero. You can always put somebody else in. So I'm not sure that's really that much worse than a typical super flex or where there's one required quarterback. Maybe something just to remember with that. Um, he brings up divisions. Oh, I see what you're saying. Do multiple, flex, fusion flex. Hey, I would make a whole like tourney. Sounds like a lot of work, but hey, if there's interest and people will donate, I'm up for it. Maybe play. This is where I was thinking of Stone Jesus. You said maybe play with the flex spots. You think the scoring is great. I would look at the scoring a little bit and see if it's this. I didn't really focus on it much. Sorry, I keep bumping it here. I didn't focus on it much, but the roster points, like the actual points from those players, 4 players getting 1,200 points, 7 getting 13. The next best 4 was 900. If you got quarterbacks and they hit, they were absolutely going to outscore everybody else. And so I wonder if I need to tune down the quarterback scoring just a little bit. And I'll look into how to do that. I would probably look at where I'm going to take away those points. I'd have to look into that a little bit. And I'd also have to, I think in this scoring, I did not give a full points to yardage, to rushing yards as running backs and other position players. I only gave quarterbacks points for rushing yards that was equivalent to their passing yardage rate. So 1 for every 20 or 25, right? That way, actually, I need to look into that and how the actual players, particular players, how that worked out. And I mean, as you could see, Aaron Rodgers was way up there, but so was Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. They were still up there, but if they were getting those full points for rushing, oh my goodness, Kyler, Russell, Josh Allen, Tannehill, these guys would have been even higher. They would have been up in the 400s as well, I'm pretty sure. Just a guess, just knowing the scoring. Lamar Jackson, see, he's all the way down here. So if his value is really depressed. Jake, you should not have taken him 101. If you'd paid attention to the scoring, you would have seen that and gone Patrick Mahomes or something like that because you wanted passing points. Maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. It encourages you to go after an actual passing quarter. I think it just balances it. I just think it's balanced. Enough on that. Also, it means more risk of interceptions and so on, which are negative, big negative. And so it comes with a risk as well, right? You could be Kirk Cousins throwing for a ton of yards, but throwing 3 interceptions or something, and you end up in the negative in this scoring. And in normal scoring, that would come through for you with a fairly decent day, right? Let's see. Not much else at the moment from you guys past that. And we're almost hitting 20 minutes. I didn't want to go longer than that. Thank you again so much, all of you. I will message that chat if you stay in that Twitter group. I'll message in there again next year with when I start this, get it up and running to see who wants to be involved again. And of course, we will maybe expand, maybe do additional Fusion Flex leagues. And again, Byron, you got to get us because you're the first, and there will be more, but you're the very first champ of it. And we got to get some pictures. Keep bumping this microphone down here. All right, guys. Thank you again so much, and take care. Have a great off season. Enjoy. If you somehow start missing fantasy football, uh, come on back to Fusion Fantasy Football. I have stuff for you, more spreadsheets. It's not very obviously entertaining doing it in videos like this. There was just some stuff I actually wanted you to see. But I'll do the podcasts, and if you like the videos, I can do that too. I'll get into free agents soon, then rookies, and then draft and projections and all that throughout the year. So when you're ready to come back to fantasy football, I'll be here. If you need anything, hit me up in DMs. I love it when I can actually talk to people and get responses, and I want to be able to give content that is helpful to you guys, not just whatever strikes my fancy that week, which is kind of what I do in the off season. I have a rough schedule, but I've got some fun stuff coming up in a couple of weeks here. I've got Dr. Edwin Porras, if you're familiar with him, the FB injury doc, coming on, talking some values maybe, their injury perceptions. That's the biggest highlight that I can think of because I really like him and his content. So check out, keep an eye out, keep in touch. I'll see you in the chat. Thanks again, everyone. I'm out.